If you've gotten into using games in your teaching, I bet you never want to go back. But you might be left with one problem. How do you store all these fabulous games? If we haven't met before, my name's Nicola Canton and I run a site called Vibrant Music Teaching, which helps teachers teach with games, teach with creativity, run their businesses efficiently. What I'm known for most, I think, is the games, and so I get a lot of questions about storing these beauties, whether they're from us or from elsewhere. Now, if you have one game that you use every so often as a kind of a novelty and a bit of a brain break, then you probably don't have this issue. But once you start getting into using games really to teach as a pedagogical tool, that's when you start accumulating more of them and you realize how many games you need for your studio to teach every concept in the best, most durable, most fun way. But I'm not here to sell you on games because I think you're already using them since you're looking at how to store them. So let me share my system with you. So the first part of this is how you actually store the game, each individual game. And for me, I store all of them in these A4 plastic wallets. Now, I get a lot of questions about these because I believe they're not that common in North America. So A4 plastic wallet is what you'll search for if you're looking for them on Amazon or your local office supply store or whatever, wherever. Over here in Ireland, in the UK, in Europe, they're very common. They're something you'd find everywhere. If you want to use something that's more readily available to you, I think that's great. I don't think it has to be plastic. This is just what we can access here that I can use for all my games. What I like about them is that they close. So a lot of the issues I have with paper ones, although I'd love to switch to some kind of a paper option, is that they don't have a closure on the back. But if you can find something that closes, that's going to keep everything safe, stop it falling out, I think that's great. The most important thing is to store all the game components together. So all the Vibrant Music Teaching games come with these covers, and it has the concepts and the level on the front and then the title of the game. So I use that, I print that on a sticker paper and I stick it on the front of my folder. And then inside I have everything that you would need to play the game. If it's a game that we're going to lend to students for home use, I would also include a couple of rubbers in here, erasers, like animals or something like that. You can buy them super cheap. Or little foam shapes to use as counters if it's a game board, and a dice if it needs one. But this game doesn't need that. So there's the cards right here, which you'll see I have attached together with a rubber band. I don't always do that anymore. I often use a paper clip instead because rubber bands expire over time and then they start breaking up or they even stick to the paper. So I find a paper clip now works even better, but whichever you prefer. And then I have the instructions there, which also includes the learning objectives, and then the board. I just want to show you the board because one of the questions I get a lot is about storing bigger game boards. So the majority of game boards that are big, if they're designed for you to print at home, they should come in pieces, right? That's what ours do. This is a very simple graphic game board for Kayla Kangaroo. And you'll see it's in 2 pages because otherwise, how are you going to print it at home? You'd have to get it printed at, a professional printer, commercial printer, and that'd be inconvenient. So because it comes in 2 pages, it's stuck together on the back. We use masking tape for the most part because we find it lasts over time and it works really well. Masking tape, if you're not familiar with that term, is like a paper kind of tape. Because it's stuck together on the back and because we leave a tiny gap when we stick the pages together, you can kind of see the light through it, that means it folds. And that's no problem. If it's 4 pages, it still folds the same way because there's a little gap. So that's the key, is really when you're sticking it together, just leave a tiny little gap, like a millimeter or so, in between the pages and tape along the back. And that way you'll be able to fold it, no problem. So that's how we store all of our games. Even the few I have from before we started making so many, when I used to use other creators' games a bit more, I modified them, I created a title page and whatever so that I could store them in the exact same way. And then I store all of these in magazine folders. So I get mine from IKEA because it's cheap and easy, but you can get them wherever. I use just cardboard ones. You can get plastic ones. I prefer the cardboard. I think they're nicer. And I just slot them side by side, but facing so that the longest edge is lying down on the shelf. So it makes like a cataloging system, and I can store all my games away that way. And then I labeled the bottom underneath the magazine folder. So on the top edge, really, of the tallest part of the folder, I put a label and I double it over, fold it back on itself so that it says on the edge of the shelf, it says what they are. Now, the question is from here is, okay, but what way do I categorize them? And whenever you're categorizing anything, I think you need to do the thing that makes sense to you. Now, you might not know what that is, but start to think about, how do I think about games? How do I look for them? Okay, so if you think about them by level, great. If you think about them by concept, great. You'll see in my system, we have a lot of concepts, mainly organized by concept, but then split up into levels for the concepts that have a lot of games. Now keep in mind, I have a copy of every game we've ever created for Vibrant Music Teaching. So, and a few more, and some that I have duplicates of. So I'm guessing that that wall holds about 450 to 500 games, something like that. You probably don't have quite that many, so it should be a more manageable area. But I think we fit it in quite efficiently with that system. Now, I'm very careful that the ones we use the most often, the categories we use most often, are down on lower shelves. And then the ones like our seasonal games or our history games that we mostly use at group workshops, those are up in the less accessible areas where most people would need a stool to go get them. So I try to think about it like that and piece it together. About once a year, maybe 18 months when I'm lucky, I need to take everything out, make sure it's all still categorized correctly, and then split up areas that now have too many games in, like the folder's getting really squishy. You probably won't have as much of this problem, but occasionally you might need to reassess, okay, do I need 2 folders for rhythm rather than 1? We used to have 2, now there's 4, so it expands over time. But I found this system to be very easy to just modify them. But there's one thing that's more important than any of this in terms of maintaining the system, because whenever you're organizing something, the hardest part to do is to maintain it. The initial setup can be quite fun, believe it or not, for me anyway, but the maintenance is not as fun. Now, on the back of every game, I have a little label that says what category it goes in. And that's necessary for me to stay up with where I want to put things. I would be fairly consistent if I were on my own without that system, but I think that's unusual, so I think even a solo teacher can benefit from that. However, it becomes essential, I think, when you have a multi-teacher studio like mine. So I try and insist that everyone puts the games back in the correct place and facing the same direction. Now, people are not as pedantic as me, so I do give them some grace, but I try and encourage them strongly to put them back the same way, because it just makes such a difference when you're flipping through. Say you have a lesson and suddenly one of the students isn't going to show up, or you have a group workshop and actually an extra student is going to come, and that changes the whole dynamic of the thing, and you need to quickly leaf through and find the right game. It helps if it's all organized and you can count on it being in the right place. So I have those labels on the back, which helps us maintain the system and keep everything in the right spot. And we also have a spreadsheet which lists all the games and the folders that they go in. That's mostly so that we can easily see if there's a game that's gone missing that we need to reprint, or where things go, where to look for things. I think the main reason we use that spreadsheet is, again, because there's multiple teachers here, they need to be able to go in and search the spreadsheet for the game name that they're looking for to know which folder it's in, just in case they're not sure whether I put it in the symbol section or the rhythm section if it includes both. So it makes it simple for all of us. So to break that down once more, you've got your system for storing each game, and it's consistent for every game you own as much as that is possible. You've got magazine folders or some way of dividing your shelf by your categories, whether that's the theme, the method book it goes with, or like us, it's the concept and then subdivided by level when necessary. And then you've got some way of maintaining that, ideally both a sticker on the back to say which folder it goes in and a spreadsheet so that you have a digital catalogue of them. If you do the digital option, you have to maintain it. So every time you add a game, for instance, when we create new games that are for membership releases that we do every month, we leave those My husband prints them and photographs them, and then he leaves those on a shelf to be sorted. And when I'm sorting them, I have to put the label on the back and put it in the spreadsheet so that it's all done. I never leave it for later. They're always left out and in my way. Not really in my way, but you get what I'm saying? So that I'm forced to do that before I put them away. So I hope this helps give you an overview. Any questions about organising your games, let us know below. And if you're looking for more games, of course, you can find them at vibrantmusicteaching.com.